Hey folks, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about My Hero Academia Chapter 300. It's the milestone chapter that we've been waiting for, and honestly, if you know me, I've been waiting for any point in time where I can weasel my way into figuring out how to concoct a theory about the vigilantes showing up in the main story of My Hero Academia. So with that being said, before we open up the bar and start this review, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and be careful, there are going to be spoilers. And if you're anime only, don't worry, your content is going to be coming out next month. I'm going to be doing weekly episodic reviews in addition to covering the manga as usual. Talking about the anime just gives me the opportunity to talk about parts of the series that I normally wasn't able to talk about because my channel didn't exist at the time. But other than that, let's go grab a drink. Alright, welcome to the bar, folks. So before we head over to the wall today and break this down, I want to talk more about the concept of My Hero Academia reaching its milestone of 300 chapters. This is a pretty momentous occasion for any series to hit its 300th chapter. Thinking back to the most popular manga of 2020, several didn't even reach that benchmark of 100 chapters, let alone 300. Take Chainsaw Man for example. Part 1 ended before it even reached 100 chapters, and Demon Slayer barely got over 120. My Hero Academia is definitely proving to be a series that's going to sustain itself for at least a few more years. And with the success of its spin-offs, I wouldn't be surprised if the story kept on going generationally by introducing new villains and protagonists beyond Shigaraki and Deku. I like to think that Horikoshi has created a substantial universe. With over 3 spin-offs and counting, the series is in its phase where it's obviously going to get some flack for being just too mainstream or just, too popular. And when I really think about it, I'm totally cool with that. There really isn't a manga out there that's spawned a thorough universe like My Hero Academia has. I mean, on the other hand, you do have manga like Jujutsu Kaisen. Their prequel story featuring Yuta was so successful that the character is now moving into the main branch of the story. But with his introduction into Jujutsu Kaisen, I really hope that it's not going to go unnoticed by the people over at Vigilantes, to kind of be like, hey, look, the fire's been lit under us, let's get these characters in My Hero Academia. But enough of that little speculation, let's head over to the wall and break this down. Alright, so, Chapter 300. I know I usually go step by step and break down each page for my usual reviews, but I'm going to be treating this video more like an analysis that helps me progress my cockamamie theories just a little bit more. Now, Chapter 300 focused on a plethora of characters, and at some points the chapter even focused on civilians that were trying to reclaim a sense of normalcy. But primarily for the plot, this chapter really focused on Endeavor and his family. And I know right now I'm actually covering the end of the chapter pretty much, but I really want to kind of talk about the fall of Endeavor before I go on my whole vigilante tirade. So when I made my video last year about whether or not his reputation was going to be besmirched and dismantled, I had this type of situation that's occurring right now totally in mind. With Toya as Dabi being as clear as Toby being Obito, it was pretty much only a matter of time before we saw this level of pettiness actually play out and destroy Endeavor. What we honestly didn't see as readers was how Horikoshi was going to be able to write Endeavor during his fall from grace. It's the definition of show, don't tell, and I feel like it was depicted rather well. What I took away from this chapter was that the Todoroki family is so shrouded in mental illness. Like, I'm no psychologist here, but the whole clan is a doctoral student's wet dream. This chapter, we finally see Endeavor have the same type of face that Rei had when she snapped. The difference between the two is, Rei held the family together when it was Endeavor's time to fall apart. Endeavor pocketed his emotions and caused his children to become closed-off rage monsters. And when I mean that they depicted his fall perfectly, look at the guy right now. Totally and utterly defeated. He even goes as far to say that Endeavor is dead. Toya Todoroki may have failed in killing Enji Todoroki, but he has totally succeeded in killing Endeavor. There's absolutely no coming back from this whatsoever, and the sick emotional realization is coming down on top of Endeavor in this chapter. All the time that he's confined to this bed, it only gives him time to replay that near-death experience at the hands of his own son. I mean, this is the guy that we saw in the early Ides of My Hero Academia as a legitimate antagonist to Shoto and Deku. The change that Endeavor desires really only comes about when he decides to change after the whole Hood debacle. But this fight against Toya, it totally ruined him. He realizes his faults, even saying to himself that, even when his children were in mortal danger, he froze. And presently, right now, he's able to reflect, and all that it does is cause his mind to snap, knowing that he's finally sowing what he's reaped for the past 20 years. Though I gotta say, what I really enjoyed about this scene particularly was the fact that Rei shows up in front of him absolutely fearless. This is the woman for who the longest time was horrified of this guy. He broke her into a million pieces and swept her into a literal nut house. But to show us right here and right now her character and gumption, she shows up with the confidence to confront him with her children right by her side. There's no more running for this guy. Despite Rey naturally looking exhausted because of age and countless years of stress, we see her in a whole new light as she's the one now looking at Endeavor as he's the one that needs help. I mean, the whole duality of the situation going as far as to bringing him the flower that he always left for her, the tables have certainly turned. And I mean, we can't really blame her for asking these questions. Rey wants answers about her family. Everything inside of this hellish Todoroki family has been shrouded in mystery because of his tight lips and attitude. And the one thing I really want to point out is that the lettering of this chapter really kind of says it all. And the fact that the words from Rey are so bold, it just kind of shows us, the reader, that Rey is ready to be firm and clear. Her voice does not waver for a second. Mama Bear wants to know what the fuck Endeavor did. Mostly because all those years of mystery, they weren't just lost to her, they were lost to the 3 siblings as well. This family has suffered way long enough living this lie. And now it's certainly time for NG Todoroki to start talking because the bullshit stops now. But that's my thoughts on the whole Endeavor situation. He's done, 100% agency and all, and if he comes back, it's one of those Ichigo dad moments where he has to act because nobody else is around to save the town. But now we can actually talk about the beginning of this chapter because honestly, us Vigilante readers have been waiting so long for the moment that we could say that Heroic Society and the Safety Commission are done. Dunski. Now, with the Age of Heroes beginning to crumble due to the events in Chapter 298 and 297, where we saw the literal rest of Japan's villains being released, it's all but safe to say that All For One's ask of the people was, just to spread as much chaos and disaster as possible. And with the addition of the Nomu on the scene, small-time crime has the ability to succeed immensely. The Nomus are now acting like a support item that helps weed out mass-produced heroes and bitch-made heroes like Yoroi Musha. The lack of heroes was already an issue, but now that high rankers like Wash have to be everywhere at once like All Might, quality of life has dropped. For the longest time, this story has foreshadowed a turn back to pre-All Might society. But this time, the caveat is if a small-time villain causes enough chaos, the opposite of a hero is going to show up in a Nomu, and those things are directly linked to All For One. So yeah, granted, All For One has this mentality that idiots and the weak will die, and the chaos of regular people defending themselves and not waiting for heroes will take over and just formulate this chaos society where just freedom and quirk freedom reigns. What I'm getting from this chapter is that a sick and twisted society is just going to become the new norm, and this take what you want mentality where the villains succeed more is just going to be the outcome that All For One wants. Mostly because if he doesn't have an empire to rule, then what's the point of being a king? Though I gotta say, it's actually pretty cool to kind of think of the Nomus as heroes for the villains. And as for the results of the previous arc, look, like I said before, it was only a matter of time before society fell. It's been the #1 plot point that this series has foreshadowed for years, even in the anime, so nobody was denying that this was even coming. Heroes are dead and hope is lost. Now it's only left to the people of Japan to secure their own safety because you know what? All Might ain't coming. I mean, we see the verbal beating that Wash gets. The Cider House gang succeeded in their robbery, destroying the area and hurting everybody nearby. And this fall of heroic society, it's caused heroes to turn tail and run away. All of these resignations just tell us, the reader, that certain people were on the billboard just for sheer PR reasons. Like Yoroi Musha, he just dips out. He was the definition of a freeloading hero. This is the dick that had the nerve to make it a point that he fell in the ranks. Dude, you were non-existent in the 2 biggest fights of the series. That guy was a top 10 hero, and he was completely invisible during the small-scale war and the fight back in Kamino. Kamui Woods gets more credit than this jackass. He was definitely on the billboard as a common courtesy because heroes of old were put up on a pedestal propped up by All Might's successes. That aside, my final thought for the video, and something that we're going to elaborate in another video this week, is the fact that this guy is back. Stain's back. Now look, if you're watching this video and you don't read My Hero Academia Vigilantes, Vigilantes has established this location once before. It's Stain's hideout, and if I were to insinuate anything, it's that the only time that we've seen this hideout is in Vigilantes. And when it's introduced, they're in Naruhara, or at least, a surrounding area. And I've been waiting for this moment to give Koichi a pigeonhole into My Hero Academia, and the release of Stain back into Heroic Society could spell for so much. I mean, we know that Ida's gonna immediately think of Stain and try to recapture him. But at the same time, if lawlessness is streaking around, especially in Naruhara, there's only one person that can come back to the streets, and that's Koichi. Naruhara was already said to have been like poorly patrolled, so it could be said that it's already a town that kind of takes care of its own. But when you think about it, Koichi knows Ingenium, he threw down with Endeavor, and he's allies with the Racerhead and the dearly departed Midnight. The time for Koichi's debut is rounding the corner, and whether or not Stain will be the reason is to be said, but the chemistry is there for the result. And it would be pretty tight to see Koichi get to play mentor to a bunch of the kids at UA. Other than that though, I think that's going to do it for today's video, and to be honest, I gotta pour myself a brew, because this chapter just had a lot to process. I mean, if you're a fan of My Hero Academia, in the next couple of months, you're going to be thriving. I mean, the anime's coming out, and Vigilantes is about to embark on what could possibly be its final arc. And as for the criticisms that the past arc is receiving, I don't think the story really suffered from recent developments, and I'm not trying to expect every chapter to kind of be My Villain Academia or Endeavor vs. Koichi. But I am expected to get at least entertained for another 300 chapters. Horikoshi is a good writer, and there haven't been many plot holes left unfilled. I know people are like, oh Dan, it's just safe writing, but I think that there's more than that. A good writer is a good writer, and when a good writer makes bad mistakes, you get Starfinger. But if you liked today's video, be sure to hit that like button. And I want to hear your thoughts on the most recent arc. And also, leave a comment down below if you think that it's Koichi's time to shine. Other than that, I gotta go give Gojo his takeout order. I'll catch you guys later. Cheers.